I'd like to welcome everybody to another edition of the History of the Commission project. And today we're fortunate to have with us Ron DeFilippis, who was a former chairman of the commission. And just a little bit about Ron's background. He's a former chairman of the commission, as I said. He was appointed by Governor Christie in 2010 and is the second longest serving chairperson, 7 years in the job. He's a founding partner of the accounting firm of Mills and DeFilippis. He's a certified public accountant, licensed in New Jersey, New York, and Florida. And also has a lot of background in politics, which was always beneficial to the commission. He was a treasurer of a number of campaigns, and he's former chairman of the Republican Party in Morris County. Ron is a graduate of Siena College and has an MBA from Rutgers University. I'd like to start off, Ron, if you might, talking a little bit about somebody that we both knew, the late Amos Saunders, who was, what a guy, what a great public servant. So I wonder if you want to say something about.
Sure, absolutely. Amos Saunders was a retired Superior Court judge, and he was just a huge asset on the commission. Huge. I mean, he was. He had great insight. He was very even-handed as he approached things or talked about things like penalties and things of that nature. Just a really, really good man. Unfortunately, he has passed, but I don't what more I could say about him. He was very professional, very courteous, and very smart, and very even-handed. So.
And I think we both remember. I mean, it's the amazing guy. I mean, it was a month before he passed away that he was in a hospital bed and he was participating in our meeting, in one of our commission meetings.
Yep.
Which is he was quite a person to know. You were serving a very unusual situation in that you were the only commissioner as chairman in 2016 when we couldn't even hold a meeting. Why don't you talk a little bit about the experience you had during that year?
Okay.
It was a very eventful year.
Yes. The commission lost the different members for different reasons. Wally Timpone was appointed to the Supreme Court, state Supreme Court, and we could talk about Wally later, but what a wonderful guy he was. And so I found myself the only commissioner there. The governor at the time didn't seem to want to appoint anybody for whatever reason, and so we would basically have meetings with no authority to do anything because we only had one commissioner. So you couldn't put anything forward. I couldn't put something forward and then be my own second. and then vote on it individually. So it was a really weird period of time for us, and unfortunately, gubernatorial politics got in the way, and that's where we were. Ultimately, the commission was replenished, and we were able to move forward. But for the whole year, we were basically, we would meet, but nothing. We couldn't do anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly during that year, you displayed great leadership as the chairman. Keeping the commission going, and I mean, we did keep effectively the enforcement aspect, even though we couldn't really issue any final decisions during that particular year, but we did continue with investigations and
Correct.
And complaints and so forth. So we might want to talk about how we didn't really stop, functioning or operating, even though we only had one commissioner.
Well, in that regard, you're absolutely right. The investigations did continue, and again, you couldn't vote on a penalty or anything because you didn't have forget a quorum. You didn't have anybody to even second me if I put something forward. So it was a little awkward in that regard. But the staff, I think Carol Hokia was with us at that point.
Carol Hokia was
Yep.
the
and
legal
Shreve
counsel.
Marshall, and they just kept right on trucking and doing their thing. Yeah.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Also, during your tenure as the chairman, we had a number of really significant cases that
Yes.
I think probably more so than normal.
Yes, yes, we had the Sharp James case. We levied a fine against him that was in the high 200s, if my memory serves me correctly. It was like 280,000 or 200.
Sharp James, it was 94,000.
Is that all?
Yeah, right, 94,000, but we got $30,000 of it,
Okay.
and the 70,000 went to the Attorney General for
Okay. I thought it was higher than that.
the part that they played.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we had the Essex County Executive.
DeFincenzo.
DiVincenzo, yeah, and basically the same thing. And I remember the one thing that still sticks in my mind is he paid for a lot of personal stuff through his campaign account, and one of them was going to Houston Astro baseball games.
Yeah.
That for whatever reason that sticks in my mind. In addition to all the other stuff, the restaurants and the vacations and everything else, and obviously we were able to. Our staff was able to. Find all that, and we levied a sizable fine against him as well. Yeah.
Yeah, another case, the Lyons case, was really significant to the commission, because, and I remember we all went up to attend the appellate case, and we heard that case being heard. As you said, Carol Hokia was the counsel at that time, and that had to do with the Superior Court judge had basically usurped the commission's functions in terms of campaign financing by saying that eliminating that election, and the appellate court upheld the commission in terms of campaign finance law.
Yeah.
In that one, so that was another significant case, and the Coniglio was another significant. So
Yeah.
I think of all the chairmen or chairpersons that have been on the commission, you probably oversaw a number of different really important cases.
I guess. Now that you start bringing those up, and I think back, it's it was a different period of time, and the one thing that I always respected about our commissioners, as you know, two of them are Republican, two of them are Democrat. Is that we rarely had a vote that was not for nothing.
Yeah.
When our staff brought us a case, and after doing all the work that they would do to research that case and to present it to us, we never had a party line vote ever. I was there over 7 years.
Yeah.
We never had a party line vote. It was always a 4-0 vote. And Wally Timpone, who was one of the Democrats on the commission, ultimately, again, he had really good insight. I still keep in touch with him, and ultimately he was appointed to the Supreme Court.
Right.
Yeah.
No, you're right. Yeah, you're right about that, and that bipartisanship really has continued. I think in the whole time that I've been there might have been one time in that whole time that there was any kind of split between Republicans and Democrats that had to do with a public financing debate between Governor Corzine and Christie and Governor Christie
Okay.
in 2000. 9, I guess it was.
Okay.
And there was a split. 2 Democrats voted one way. And all it had to do was changing the date of the public financing debate.
Okay.
And Democrats
Okay.
went one way and the Republicans went the other. That's the only
Okay.
time.
Okay.
And, you know,
And I came on the following year.
yeah, and you came
Yeah.
on the following year and continued that tradition of bipartisanship, which has, you know, pretty much has been continued under the current commission as well. So, and that's very important, you know, that people can kind of work together, you know, despite being of opposite parties and so forth. Well, there was another important issue during your tenure, and that was the Bridgegate situation.
Yes.
And we had to issue an advisory opinion with regard to that. Do you recall anything about that, or is it?
Well, as that case developed, the general public and the press would not let it die, even though it was handled.
And from our standpoint, I mean, we were asked to allow the Christie campaign to raise money after the campaign was over, and because he took public financing, that was an issue, and to pay for a subpoena that had been issued by the legislature and by the U.S. Attorney's Office for emails from the Christie campaign, and so we issued an advisory opinion with regard to that particular issue, and we allowed the Christie campaign to raise additional money to pay for those emails to make sure that justice was served.
Yes.
And so that was another very important issue that you had to deal with as a chairperson. You know, prior to the commission, prior to coming onto the commission, you know, you served as treasurer of a number of different campaigns and were involved in politics. How beneficial was that to a commissioner on the, because we, you know, obviously we have judges, which are, you know, very important appointments to our commission. We need to have judges on our commission, but people with actual practical experience in politics.
Yeah, it all started actually when I was 26 years old, which is a long time ago. And I hadn't done a thing in politics other than vote. I had not done a thing in politics. And my dad called me, my late father, and he said, you know my good friend, State Senator Robert Sarcone? I said, yeah. They went to high school together. He said, well, he wanted to know if he could ask you to be his treasurer. He's going to run for governor. And that's how it all started. And so I was thrilled. I didn't kind of understand why until later in life, but why he asked me. But I was a former IRS agent, so I had a very clean background, okay? And that was really the reason that I think that led him to me. In any event, within days I was at his headquarters every night in Bloomfield and on Bloomfield Avenue, and my wife and I would go down there. We didn't have children yet, and I'd be paying bills, and I'd be buying TV time in Philadelphia and New York and that kind of stuff from absolutely doing zero in politics just days before. So it was kind of like not only did I jump in to a gubernatorial race, but it was an exciting one. He lost that year to Ray Bateman, who then in turn lost to Brendan Byrne. But that's how I got involved, and from that point on, I stayed involved. I ran for county committee. At the time, my wife and I were living in an apartment in Parsippany, so our district was empty, so we wrote our names in, got on the county committee. We met the late Joan Bramhall, who was the municipal chairman at the time in Parsippany, and then after that, I was kind of bitten, and continued on. So.
Well, I mean, but how beneficial was that experience in politics to being on the commission?
Oh, it was extremely beneficial, because I not only did I work as a treasurer for him, but I did a lot of other things. I was treasurer for the Assembly Republican Majority, and Chuck Italian put me there. So I saw a lot of different things from different candidates and from ARM as they used to call it back then. And so when I was on the other side and became a commissioner when Governor Christie appointed me, that knowledge was extremely beneficial because I knew what should be done, what shouldn't be done, and what was the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it, and things of that nature. So.
Yeah, particularly when we were dealing with cases and so forth, which, that accounting background and being a treasurer was really very helpful. I remember you asking a lot of really good questions of the staff and the investigative staff and so forth on a lot of those, those cases that we had. You were also, in 2013 when we had a gubernatorial campaign, you were chairman during that year, and of course we had public financing, which has continued to be a really important program. How did you feel about the public financing program? Because I know in that year, I believe Governor Christie took public financing. Yeah, he did. Yeah. And he was, the first time he ran in 2009, he was really outspent tremendously by Governor Corzine. I think something like $30-some million to $10 million that Christie got in public funds. Yeah. So that public funds really did help him in 2009. And what are your feelings about the public financing?
I'm kind of mixed about it. It does give people who do not have access to campaign dollars to be able to raise them based on who they are, where they live, and what their social network is and that kind of thing. So that's, I guess, a positive. On the other side, being a CPA, it's like, do we really want to spend the taxpayers' dollars this way? So I kind of float back and forth on that one. I guess if everybody was handling was being given public financing and the same dollar value, I guess that equalizes the process. It also doesn't make them beholden to any major contributor or thing of that nature. So that's a positive. But in a year when you have maybe 4 or 5 people running in a primary to be governor, and maybe on both sides, that's a lot of taxpayer dollars that flow that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously the debate. I think, in New Jersey, we've, our program has been held up as a national model, really, because it really has eliminated any kind of undue influence from the process, and the elections for governor have been very clean. And a lot of people attribute that to the public financing program, but there is that other side of the of the issue that you point out as well. Yeah. You were also for a period of time the chairman of the Republican Party in Morris County.
Yes, that came after my time at ELEC. Yes. And one of the things that I've been talking about for a long time is the growth of these independent groups and independent expenditures. Yes. And totally eclipsing the parties in New Jersey. And I'm sure you had that kind of experience with, as chairman of Morris County, where you had a lot of these groups that, you didn't even know who any of these, who were behind them, who were supporting them, and underwriting these independent groups. And I find it to be a real problem with our electoral system. I don't know how you feel about it, but as a former. Well, I agree. The party, the two-party system, or even beyond, if you bring in some of the other smaller parties, the fact that you had involvement from the district level up, the county committee level up, was really, really, to me, good. So you had somebody in every, a man and a woman in virtually every district who represented the party. When the party would would caucus and decide things. You got a lot of input, that kind of thing. I became after the Sarcone campaign. His campaign manager was a fellow by the name of Joe Intile, and Joe said to my wife and I, "You guys ought to run for county committee where you live in Parsippany." And I said, what's that? And he explained it to me. And he said, when you get your ballot, he says, show it to me. So sure enough, we show it to him, and the slots were open. There was nobody running for Republican county committeeman in that district. So he said, simply write your names in and vote for each other as well. So we did. So we each got 2 votes. Somebody actually did the same thing, but they lost 2-1. And so that's how Patty and I got on to the county committee. The late Joan Bramhall was our municipal chairman, and she also worked out of Congressman Dean Gallo's office. She was his chief of staff, so off we went, and we got involved in Parsippany politics and Morris County politics, and the county committees were very active. And now it's not like that anymore. The candidates put their names out there. The county committees, a lot of the districts aren't even filled, so you don't have the party people in those districts, and it's not the same. It's not the same.
I think that's probably how a lot of people get involved in politics. They kind of get drawn into being a county person, a county committee person, and from there, I know that's how I got involved in. Somebody, could you be a county committee man? And I remember in District 4 in Milltown, and that's everything went from there.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people get involved that way. One of these things about that bothers me about independent groups, and I've always said they have a First Amendment right to exist and to participate in the electoral process, but they have an advantage over the parties, and they have an advantage over the candidates, because the parties are subject to contribution limits, and they have to disclose their financial activity, and so do the candidates, where in most instances these independent groups don't have to, and there's no contribution limit that they have to adhere to or anything. So they really have an advantage in our elections in New Jersey now. Very, very influential. So it's one of the reasons we've been kind of, pushing the idea that at least we should get disclosure from these groups.
And they should play by the same rules.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah,
exactly. That's that's a big part of it. At least have the same rules that apply to them as to the parties and to and to the candidates as well. Another thing that I saw is happening in Morris County with the Morris County Republicans is that they're going to offer cryptocurrency as an incentive to people to contribute. And how do you feel about the cryptocurrency? Because we've had a couple of requests for advisory opinions on cryptocurrency.
Yeah. Being a CPA, cryptocurrency to me is something that I ask people, my clients, if they ask me, stay away from it. Okay. I just don't see, bringing in a different type of currency other than the U.S. dollar, and I just, to me, it's you just don't know. You just don't know, and when you watch it, like we do constantly, as you can see, the screen is on. That thing will it'll go up and down, $2,000 in a day. Yeah. In a day, either way, and so I have some clients that say to me, "Oh, I made $5,000," and others and say, "Well, I lost $10,000," that kind of thing. So I'm not a fan of cryptocurrency. And I'm not a fan of any other kind of currency other than the U.S. dollar, and as far as being in our country. And if you're going to go off of the U.S. dollar, then gold and silver are good places to invest. Gold has been around for beyond centuries, and the same with silver. I'm not a fan of the cryptocurrency at all.
Yeah, it's very troublesome, in particular with regard to politics, because it's, I think, probably very easy to hide. And we're all about disclosure.
Right. And then how do you determine when you have a campaign limit on something like,
Right.
you know what I mean? How do you determine what the value, if somebody gives the candidate cryptocurrency, which is fluctuating by the moment, how do you,
Sure.
how do you, stay within your guidelines? It's at least a dollar is a dollar. And if the cap is, whatever it is, X amount of dollars, then it's pretty much, tried true, and everybody understands. With the cryptocurrency changing literally by the minute, I don't know that serves any purpose.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point that you're making,
Yeah.
because we have a contribution limit that candidates and parties have to adhere to. So you're right. I mean, it could, one day, you make a contribution in cryptocurrency and you're under the contribution limit, but
Yeah.
then it, before the election, it changes, to be an excessive contribution because of
Exactly
the way
right.
it goes up and down.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. So if a candidate accepts cryptocurrency, which on the day he accepts it
Yeah.
or she accepts it, is within the based on its value that day, is within the guidelines, a week later it could be way above the guidelines.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is. It very is troublesome. I'm looking up there and I see a photograph of looks like you and your wife and Ronald Reagan.
Yes.
Is there any story to that?
Yeah, there is. It's when I was the first of three boys, and my mom wanted me to be named Ronald. My father was first generation Italian American, and he wanted me to be named after him. His name was Joseph, and they literally argued over the name. And so the name came out Ronald Joseph. Okay. My next brother came along, and my dad said, no, this one's Joseph. And so he won on that score. And then the next brother came along, and he was Gary Joseph. So my father got the name in there, but he didn't get what he wanted when I was born. And for years, he would accuse my mom of naming me after, quote unquote, that actor. Okay. And my mother would say, no, it's just because I like the name. It had nothing to do with that. And when I was 13 years old, my parents scraped up enough money for a down payment on a house in Wayne. We were living in Newark. And so we moved to Wayne, and while emptying or helping them move some boxes into the house, I had a couple of boxes with a cookie tin on top, and I'm in the garage, the cookie tin falls off, the lid pops open, and there's all of these postcards and stuff from the Ronald Reagan fan club. So my father says, "Aha, I told you she named it after that actor." And so the argument started again. And my mother would say, "No, I just like the name." Until, I guess it was 1979, yes. State Senator Bob Sarcone, who just recently passed away, by the way. When he finished his gubernatorial run in '77, and I was the treasurer, there was a debt. It was about $20,000, which in those days was a lot of money. And so he kept saying to me, "I'm going to get somebody, a guest speaker, to come in. We'll erase this debt." And I was filing with ELEC every quarter, and that kind of thing. And with our loss, our debt situation. And then he called me up and said, "I got a guest speaker." And I said, "Well, who is it?" He says, "Ronald Reagan." Wow. Okay. And he lined it up at what was then called the Town and Campus in West Orange, and we had a really, really good event that night. We had it was two-tier, So for those people that were paid the higher dollar, they got to get their photo taken with Ronald Reagan. It was late in '79, and he was running for the 1980 presidential race, and he was already announced and ready to go, and he would be in obviously the national primary, and then on to the general if he won, and one of the or two of the people in the room for the private reception were my mom and dad, and as soon as my mother saw him, she screamed out loud, "I named my son after you," in which case my father was right behind her saying, "Aha, I told you," right? He was, he said, "I told you she did." And she ran up, put her arms around him. And he's got security in there, in the room. And she didn't care. She didn't care. And I kept saying, after she did that, I said, "Mom, you could have got shot. Well, he's a presidential candidate. He's got security all over. What are you thinking?" "I don't care. I don't care." And she, she was just overcome by seeing him, and it was quite a situation. And our family still talks about it and still laughs about it. And then fortunately I got to meet Ronald Reagan several times after that as well. When I was the finance chairman for the Morris County Republican Committee, we had him in twice for fundraisers. Once when he was running for president, and so I got to introduce, Dick Kamen was the county chairman, and he allowed me to MC these events. And so I got to introduce him the first time as the next president of the United States, because like I said, he was running but not yet president. And then the second time we had him in for a fundraiser, I got to introduce him as the president of the United States. Just unbelievable individual.
How, you obviously come from a Republican background. How difficult when you're on a commission to put all that partisanship aside?
Not at all, because if you look at my entire life, I mean, I was born and raised in Newark. I went to a Catholic grammar school, okay? And if there's one thing the nuns taught you, it was right from wrong, okay? It didn't matter what color you were, what color shirt you wore. It didn't matter, there's a right way and a wrong way. And they had no doubts about letting you know that if you did something wrong. And so that was the kind of background that I came from. And so it wasn't difficult for me to say, when I was on the commission, let's say, to vote to fine a Republican candidate versus a Democratic candidate. I mean, actually the whole commission was that way. Mm-hmm. We basically voted 4-0 on virtually everything, regardless of the party of the person. And again, you either did it right or you did it wrong.
Yeah. I mean that's so important. That's what really has been so really good or great about the commission is that we do have Democrats on, we do have Republicans on, and they put that partisanship aside in terms of making decisions. And now that I think about it too, my early career as a federal agent for Internal Revenue Service kind of led me in that direction as well, because when I would audit a business or whatever, you either cheated or you didn't cheat. I didn't know your background. I didn't know what party you were from. All I knew is that you owned the local deli and you're lying about your revenue. And so so I was always a black and white type of person when it comes to violating the laws. How I probably should have asked this question at the beginning of the interview, but how did it come about that you got called by the governor's office to serve on the commission?
I knew Governor Christie when he was here in Morris County as a freeholder, so I knew him. Okay, right. And but I didn't know how much we had in common at the time, because I always knew that he had gone to Livingston High School, so I just thought he grew up in Livingston. The night that he became governor, my wife and I were in the audience when he gave his acceptance speech, and he said, "Who would have thought that a boy from Newark could become governor of New Jersey?" I turned to my wife and I said, "He's from the hood. I didn't realize he was from the hood." So the next opportunity I had, I said, I talked to him about it. I said, so where were you in Newark? And he said, well, I was on South Orange Avenue, the corner of South Orange Avenue and 22nd Street, which was 4 blocks east of the Garden State Parkway.
Okay.
I was raised at Chelsea Avenue and South Orange Avenue, which was 4 blocks west of the Parkway. So we were literally growing up 8 blocks apart. We didn't know each other. 8 blocks in Newark is like 3 different neighborhoods, you know, that kind of thing. So we didn't know each other, but we had the same background. And then all of a sudden, some of his mannerisms and some of the things that he would say, now I understood because I knew where he came from. And I came from the same place. So so that's you know, that was you know, part of the process. And then so he called me up on a Friday, and he said, I would like to make you a commissioner on the Election Law Enforcement Commission. I said, okay. You know, how much is involved? And you know, they meet once a month, and you know, everything else is done by, you know, email or phone or whatever. You're only in Trenton 1 day a month and that kind of thing. So I said to him, well, can I think about it over the weekend? And he said, sure, call me on Monday. I said, all right. So over the weekend, I talked to my wife, and I talked to my very dear friend, former Assemblyman Dick Kamen, and got their advice. And so Monday morning, I called. And I said to the governor, I'll accept it, yes, you know. And so I want to say that was like in May of 2010, all right, right around there. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm on the commission, I had to go through senatorial, so the Senate
Sure.
had to approve me, that kind of thing. So we went through that whole process. And that was an interesting process. But anyway, so they passed me, and so now I'm on the commission. And then he called me, I think it was October of the same year, and he said to me, now that you're on the commission, he says, I get to decide who the chairman is. He says, and I'd like to make you the chairman. So my first thought was, I said, you know, I'm the newest person there, number one. And number two, the other Republican, Amos Saunders, has got a lot more experience there than I do. So all right, okay. So that's how it. So then he made me the chairman. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we're about to wrap up the interview. Is there anything you'd like to add? To conclude? Yeah.
Only that I truly enjoyed my time there. And even though it's a non-paid position, it actually was lucrative because all of my political friends would ask me to help with their campaigns, and I'd say, I can't, I'm prohibited. So,
right. You don't have to contribute any more money.
Yeah, exactly. So over the years, I saved a lot of money by being there. But I enjoyed the time there very much, and I enjoyed the people. Starting with you and Joe and Joe Donahue, and then everybody else, like I said, Carol Hokia, who I mentioned before, and Shreve, and just great staff. You have a wonderful staff down there, and very professional, and so I really enjoyed the time. Obviously, being a former campaign treasurer at so many levels, I understood everything, right from the get-go. So that was good. And like I said, we did not act in a bipartisan way. We basically acted in unity, and we had some really nice people. Wally Timpone, to this day, I still keep in touch. As you may remember, I have a bone marrow cancer called multiple myeloma. Wally has the same disease.
Yeah.
And so every now and then I'll shoot him a text and that kind of thing.
How are you doing with that? You're doing?
I'm okay. I mean, it's been 16 years, over 16 years.
Yeah.
And but thank God to the people at Hackensack Medical Center. They're experts in this disease. And so, I still function. I still, basically do everything. I'm technically semi-retired, but I've been spending more time here in my office than I should, only because my partners, my former partners, just haven't been able to hire staff. There's nobody out there that wants to work, and so I don't want them to. To keep pressure off of them, I try to do as much as I can, and but I'm doing fine with it. And they just came out with a new treatment, and I'm on the list for it. However, because I'm a high functioning multiple myeloma patient, I'm at the bottom of the list, which makes sense. They're taking the people that are critical, that are taking them first, which I understand, and keep right on going. So
Again, I've been speaking with Ron DeFilippis, who is former chairman of our commission, and we really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. I know it's your busy season in taxes and so forth, and thank you for taking the time.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
Right.
And I'm glad you postponed it a week, because we had that ice storm was horrific last week.
Yeah.
I don't know about where you. I couldn't get into my car. It took me a half hour to break away enough ice just to get into the car. Yeah.
Yeah. In the area that I live in too, I had ice all over the car. I had to do the same thing too.
And I have the remote start, so I started it, thinking that was going to help, but really didn't.
Yeah.
But,
well, glad it didn't. It's still winter outside today, though. But I guess over the weekend it's supposed to get up to 70 degrees or something. So it's one of those up and down winters.
Yeah.
But thanks again for sitting down with me.
Oh, thank you for having me.